What's up, guys? How's everybody doing? Let me know if you guys can hear me and see me. Had some technical difficulties here this morning. What's up? What's up? Damien, how you doing? Good morning. Sweet. Good morning. Dimitar, 5 handles. Damien, thanks, appreciate that. Hope you guys had a good week. It's been a bit mostly up, but kind of an up and down, kind of whippy week. Get into the analysis here. My first full week back at trading since Christmas and the holidays and everything. Marco, what's up, man? Good morning. Thanks for dropping in. Marco, how's your week going? Green week for me, just small, just a couple trades. Nothing significant this week so far for me. Just kind of easing my way back in a little bit. Hello, hello. Happy Friday. Institutional trading order flow. Yeah, let me know. How's your week been, guys? You guys up? You down? Sideways? Good morning, Trader King, Sajjad, Muhammad. Welcome in, Ren. Welcome. So big shout out to our sponsors, TradeZella. If you guys want a discount on that, check out the CF20 promo code, get 20% off, as well as all the sponsors that we have on here, Apex, Funded Next, to name a few. If you guys want the best deals, check out the promo codes shared here. We will be doing account giveaways throughout the stream. Let me just verify that again really quick. Let me share this link really quick. We're going to get into the analysis for the day, guys. Go through, do some live trading, see what develops. We had NFP come out this morning. Bullish reaction so far. What up, Marco? Small L and a good win on stream Tuesday. Nice. Slow overall. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't taken a loss this week so far, so that's good. But I've had a couple break evens and a couple small wins. So that's it. Yesterday specifically, saw some good confirmations, take a couple good trades, but just could not get continuation on them. Also wasn't willing to take a loss on them after seeing the failures at the high. So ultimately just stopped out of them break even. Yeah, Alpha Capital, Funded Next, Apex. Check out the promo codes here, CF20 on TradeZella as well. Huge shout out to them, making this channel happen for you guys, putting together some awesome live trading with professionals. Tune in every day here on Chart Fanatics. So we'll start going through analysis for the day, things that I'm watching. We're a little bit, I would say momentum is on the bulls side here for sure. Obviously, we had a nice bit of momentum off the NFP news this morning. We have a little bit more news coming out. Michigan consumer expectations, something or other. It's kind of a medium impact, but it is one that I watch nonetheless. Yeah, Michigan consumer expectations and consumer sentiment could spark some volatility there. But we're a little bit at kind of a rock and a hard place, as I sometimes say. So we're a little bit at a rock and a hard place between some areas of support and resistance. So I'm going to share what I'm watching here. If you guys are not already in the Chart Fanatics Discord, I recommend checking that out. There's lots of good resources shared in there, in a great trading community. You can also see updates from me and the other pros that trade on Chart Fanatics Live. Also, I shared my game plan in there with a screenshot of some of the analysis that I'm looking at this morning. And as I talk through things this morning and kind of go through the analysis and things that I'm watching, I'll be sharing screenshots in there. So if you want to review it, you can. Again, that's a super easy to join free resource. We will be doing free account giveaways with Apex, FundNX, and Alpha Capital later in the stream. And you will need to be in the Discord to claim that. So you might as well just go ahead and get access in there now. Let's see here. So I always like to start out the days just kind of taking a zoom out. If you aren't aware, I primarily trade ES futures, a little bit NQ. I don't trade gold. I get asked that just about every stream. No, I know that's the new hotness that everybody's jumping on. I continue to just primarily just trade ES and SPY. That's what I do. I will start probably adding some analysis for folks in there this year. So I will start doing that more on NQ and maybe gold. But again, I don't like to speak out of turn too much and start talking about things that I'm not super proficient in myself. So kind of talk about the context that I'm watching here today. You can see this range that we've been in for the last 3 weeks. This is a weekly chart on ES. So we've pretty much been in the same zone here for 3 weeks now. Am I right? So that's why that's part of the reason why I have not been super active, especially the holidays, Christmas and New Year's. And then this first week, I've also just been kind of taking it slow just because of this range that we've been in. I haven't seen a ton of opportunity personally. I trade ES futures and SPY options, the S&P 500. I also, the stuff that I teach as far as trading with order flow, I view the market auction from a supply and demand perspective, and I do analysis based on reading the real-time auction, which is reading the tape, reading the order flow as it comes in the market to get very precise entries and exits. Primarily just an intraday trader. So yeah, this is ES futures to answer your question. Good morning, Justin. Welcome in, man. Good to see you. Hope everything is well. Yeah, so I'm pretty much watching this block that we've been in here, right? I like to get more interested in the highs and lows, less interested in the middle. But again, I'm just starting out at a very high level, going through some of the stuff that I've been watching. Let's take a look at the daily chart here. And I start layering in more and more information that I'm looking at. Beyond just candle charts, start looking at volume profiles, start looking at actual order flow for setups. But I think a mistake that a lot of people make with order flow trading, with price action trading in general, is they just start like hunting for setups and they're looking for somewhere to just execute. They're looking for a confirmation to click buy or sell. And they call themselves traders, but really they're just market participants with a dopamine addiction. They're just clicking buttons. And it helps you avoid that by starting fresh every day, looking at higher timeframes, looking at the market context, looking at where everything is at overall. Even if you're a very short-term scalping trader like I am. Like there's probably very few traders that are more short-term than me, right? I read the order flow by the second, by the millisecond almost. But even then, I still start out understanding the whole market picture, what's going on from a fundamental standpoint with the news, from overall context perspective with the market structure, supply and demand. And then I align that very narrow focused analysis of order flow with that where it makes sense. And it's a mistake to start the other way around and just like hunting for areas to click buttons without a good picture in mind of the overall context that's going on in the market. So don't be a dopamine addict that's clicking buttons. Be a trader. So looking at the daily chart here now. Again, still ES. We've been leaning bullish, right? It's a mostly flat week. We started out the week strong early on with, this rally, but basically since Tuesday, we've just kind of been up and down in this range here, right? And this will make more sense as we go on, as I start looking at the volume profiles and stuff here. I'm not looking to enter any trades here until after 9:30. I don't really trade the pre-market. I don't really trade the first few minutes after 9:30. There's just too much surge. Can't really catch anything with high, consistency, I guess I should say. So taking a look here at this chart, let me get rid of this. Bears have tried to resist at this little supply area that I have marked. It's not a super major supply area in my opinion, but it was an area where I saw really large aggressive selling. It's continued to act as resistance like 3 major times now, right? So triple top here. However, every time we reject off this, we continue to make higher lows. So generally what that tells me is, yes, sellers are continuing to defend this area up here, but we continue to make higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. And that's telling me just purely from that context, sellers are looking like, at least right now, they're running out of gas more and more. Every time we hit this, we absorb, we reject. Each time sellers are running out of gas more and more. So especially recently, look at these last 2 days, sellers had, the opportunity to close price under prior day lows and really reject back lower and failed. And we recaptured and closed green. They dropped it again, going for prior day lows, again, recaptured and closed green. So this to me is just more confirmation of what we've seen, which is here, higher low, here, higher low. So each time we've rejected this area of resistance, it has lacked continuation ultimately, and bulls have been pretty resilient here, in my opinion, right? And anything could change. We could flip, we could still break this down, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what it looks like right now is, it looks to me like more and more sellers are running out of gas, and bulls are just relentlessly applying pressure to these highs. So we could see, as new information comes out, but this is what I'm watching right now. Okay. So take a look quickly at the 4-hour chart here. So we're kind of pulling back already, like since I started the stream, we were up here. We're kind of already pulling back to some key areas that we'd possibly want to see bulls defend. So we'll see what happens here. But so far on the news, we did break out these prior highs right into this resistance area, which right now is rejecting in the pre-market here before the open. So we'll see what happens here. But this is a little bit of what I was talking about when I first mentioned earlier, where right now we're a little bit in between a rock and a hard place. The rock being bulls continue to defend the dips and print higher lows, and the hard place being bears continue to relentlessly defend this kind of area here, also around all-time highs, and this area being kind of between like 85 and 7,000 roughly. We had a little fake out of it yesterday that couldn't sustain, so that was interesting, and we dropped back in. However, we also couldn't sustain the lows. In fact, we couldn't even break those prior lows there, and we sustained, and we're right back up into that resistance area again. Supreme Court ruling comes out at 10 a.m. So yeah, that's another thing to watch. We also have that consumer confidence news at 10 a.m. So multiple things coming out at 10 a.m. When we have news coming out like 10 a.m. like that, this is kind of the same thing that happened when you guys saw me. If you tuned in on Wednesday, I traded live on Chart Fanatics on Wednesday. I caught a little 2-hour trade, 2.5-hour scalp in that little time window between 9:30. You know, I really don't like to be involved in trades in the first 5 minutes there. And then I really don't like to be involved too much in trades, you know, right on news. So in my opinion, I had a little time window kind of between like 9:40 and 9:50. If a good opportunity set up, I caught that scalp. It might be something similar today, where we'll see if an opportunity develops between like 9:35 and 9:50. But the few minutes leading up to higher impact news can become very thin. Right? The tape can become very thin, which means it can just move very sporadically and unpredictably, very easy to get swept out. It's not advisable to be in positions, at least in scalping positions with tight stops in that type of market condition. Again, I'm dropping these screenshots in the Matt Owen channel on the Chart Fanatics Discord, so if you'd like to follow along, or if you'd like to review this for yourself, it's there. So since I've been talking, since we started this live stream, the volume profile has changed a bit. We've kind of continued to develop some new information here, but let me screenshot this. This is my Sierra chart platform. I also have something similar configured on Tradeovate, but I'm looking at a 30-minute chart with daily volume profiles. It's the full session volume profile. So again, talking about that rock in the hard place that I was watching. So we see this consolidation here. We ultimately rallied over that. And then we consolidated again up here. Just look at all this volume built up. Had a really strong consolidation here, and then ultimately failed to break out above it and drop back under it, right? So this is kind of these two spots at near the highs and lows that I was talking about, and then just above this here is where we kind of built that volume yesterday. So we could even kind of shift this now, kind of looking at this area here. Again, this is not a specific level that I'm looking to trade necessarily right now. I'm just sharing like kind of this information of like, see how, you know, we're kind of in, there's not a super clean action here. We had a lot of consolidation in here yesterday. We broke out above it. We hit this resistance area where we had all this volume built up this week, and we're kind of ping-ponging here. Daniel Pineda, thanks, man. These are the Gunner glasses. They're just blue light blocking. I like them. They have a very slight magnification, which helps me see my screens a little bit better, reduces eye strain. I get less headaches looking at the charts all day, every day. So this is in the near term, right? This is kind of that rock and hard place that I'm talking about. And then also, even just zooming back to those weekly charts, it makes perfect sense that we're seeing, you know, kind of lack of direction, price action, when, you know, even just looking at a weekly chart, we've got, you know, this kind of range going on, right? So makes sense. I really have very few levels here. You can see on my weekly chart here, I really only have, you know, 2 key areas that I'm watching, which is kind of the highs and lows of the last 3 weeks near key demand and key resistance. Yeah, if you guys appreciate this kind of in-depth analysis and getting to trade side by side with professional traders live for free on Chart Fanatics, it helps us out a ton if you just drop a like and subscribe, turn on your notifications if you want to be notified when these go live every day. Lots of great traders in here. If you like the order flow stuff, I do this on Fridays. If you're new here, every Friday on Chart Fanatics Live, I'm here. So to be a little bit specific, if you read my pre-market game plan that I shared, this kind of the nearest area of demand, call it consolidation, that I was watching that we rallied out of was around the 69.70 to 69.55 area. And that resistance area to the upside, that key resistance area that I was watching, was around 69.85 to 95, right? Not really looking too much at that little pump fake over 7,000 we had yesterday. Kind of wicked that out and dropped back down. The main, you know, if we get back up there, I'm really not looking to short the highs up there, right? So really quick, the market's about to open. I already talked about these scenarios in the Chart Fanatics Discord. Again, here it is. This is the Matt Owen channel. This is the thing that I shared this morning. So these were kind of the scenarios that I was watching out for. The first being, if we continue to sustain pullbacks, right? Bulls have continuing to sustain higher lows. Bulls have continued to sustain higher lows. So if we continue to hold this area around 55 to 70, and I see really large absorption, really strong buying, I'll be interested in possibly just scalping it long, targeting, you know, back up into the 80s, 80, 85. If we're continuing to be really strong in there, I'll probably just trail my stop into the 90s and 7,000 possibly. Again, I'm kind of waiting to see what develops real time here because we're just kind of ping-ponging between key areas. So I really want to let new information develop here this morning. The second scenario that I was watching, which has kind of already played out now, again, I shared this at 9 a.m. this morning, so 28 minutes ago. The second scenario I said is sellers continue to resist in that this 85 to 95 resistance area. If we continue to resist and sellers are strong, I would be interested in taking it short, just targeting that 55 to 70 range. That setup has already played out. As I've been talking on the stream, the scenario has already played out, which is we saw all this absorption and then look at this large selling that came in here again at that 85 to 95 range, right? I shared that 30 minutes ago. 85 to 95 resistance, scenario 2, you know, if we resist there, we could drop back and target 55 to 70, and we're trading it right at 70 right now. So that entry zone has already been hit, sellers resisted it, and the target's already been hit. So that setup, if that plays out again, I'd be less likely to trade it because that setup has already played. These levels have already been tested now. So here's the market open, and the third scenario is kind of invalid now, which was if I see on a pullback we continue to hold above this like 80 to 85 area, then I would look for possibly momentum from the bulls side to go long and target a breakout of 7,000. So the main scenario that's still valid right now is if bulls defend this 69.70 to 55 area on a failed dip into yesterday's consolidation range. If we see a strong reaction from bulls there, I'd be interested in possibly going long, just targeting like 69.80, 85 would be like just a first target. And then possibly into the 90s, 7,000 if bulls are really strong. Hopefully all of that game plan and analysis makes sense for you guys. I like to make my live streams a very like coaching oriented and educational session, not just like a signals chat. It's not what I do on live streams. So ask questions throughout, and I am happy to dive into them as long as I'm not actively like getting into trades and stuff. So I may be slower to respond to stuff if I'm like really honed in watching for trades myself. But other than that, I try to share as much information and make it educational focused. So we've kind of dipped under that news rally from the NFP news. Again, still watching this 70 to 55 area. I'm a little cautious trying to be like a first buyer here right in the first couple minutes on this dip. It's a little tough in my book as far as my trading goes. When we open like right on 930, we get a pullback like right at a key spot. And, you know, sometimes those are just trades that I miss. If we open like right at a key level, like on the dot, and just those first couple minutes surge of volatility and price takes off, sometimes those are just ones that I miss. And I just let it go because it's just too much of a coin flip. And it's just unfortunate situation when that happens, but it is what it is. Is there any giveaways? Yeah. There is giveaways. We have, I mentioned this already, but if you missed it, we have Apex, Funded Next, and Alpha Capital account giveaways going on. And yeah, someone mentioned this already. We've talked about this. There is more news coming out at 10 a.m. So we need to be careful of that. So starting to get some aggressive buying here. We'll see if this sustains. We dipped right into this level off the open. We're seeing some support here. If I see a little pullback and bids continue to defend this pretty strongly, I may be interested in taking it long, just targeting like 80 to 85 first. Just need to see a little pullback here. I would want to see a pullback with some weaker selling and strong buying stepping in. It's kind of thin and coin flippy here. I'm not sure. I'm not seeing anything too significant just yet. Selling is kind of still applying some stronger pressure here. We'll see if some buyers step in with some size, we'll see. Right, kind of where this buyer was right off the open here, right near that 70-ish level. I'm trying a long here. I like this aggressive buying that's coming in now. I'm in at 74.50. My stop was just under 72. I'm going to go break even right away here. I want to see this momentum carry. I don't want to see this be a fake out pop in the first few minutes here. There's a lot of buying coming in, and if it gets stuffed, I'm out, break even immediately. I want to see it go. Oh, it took me out, break even. I'm looking to re-enter if it holds. All right, I'm back in. Kind of got a little bit worse fill there. Again, kind of trailing immediately. I'm in 76s now. Again, trailing break even immediately. I really want to see momentum. Just the timing of this, where the first few minutes here, I want to see a surge of buying momentum here. And if it just keeps chopping up and down and taking me out, then I'm not gonna play in this range at all. Took me out again twice there. All right. There's just not a lot of, maybe I might be being too tight on this here. But I wanted to see a strong, immediate continuation from buyers, and it's just kind of lacking. So I took it off break even twice. There was the first one. Again, just barely came. Actually, looking at this now, I trailed a little bit too fast on my break evens because both of these took me out break even almost to the tick. So I just wanted to see a stronger momentum continuation from the buyers. And it's like it popped and then just didn't go anywhere. Just given the timing here that we're in the first couple minutes. But I may review this in hindsight and say I was too tight on this. I didn't let it breathe enough. I usually like to let it breathe in the first few minutes and be up at least 5 points before I go break even. And I went break even twice there when I was only up like 2 or 3 points. But this is what I kind of wanted to see was more, I wanted to see it happen a little bit more immediately. And unfortunately, both my entries here, it came back and stopped me like almost to the tick. Actually, it did stop me to the absolute tick there. So, and we're getting a really nice rally off that level. And here's my target now in the 80s and 85s. So that was probably a mistake on my end, guys. That was a fumble on my end. I should have let it breathe just another minute before I clicked break even on my risk. I didn't take any loss. I just took it off break even. So that was a great setup. And I kind of fumbled there. So what I was seeing, and I generally like to do this, is when I see the large aggressive buying coming in over these highs, especially when I'm in a scalp like this in the first like 10 minutes of the market being open. Whoa. I really want to see that continue, and I don't want to see that be a little fake out pop that like sweeps back lower. And this is just one of those unfortunate circumstances where it swept just low enough to stop me out to the tick, and then it kept squeezing up into my target. So that's just unfortunate. I mean, if I managed this trade exactly the same way and my stop was like just 2 ticks lower, either one of these trades would have held for a 10-point win here. So it's just an unfortunate situation. It got me to the tick. Nicole, good on you. So Nicole just took the same trade, but she left a little bit more breathing room on the trade. I managed it a little too tightly. In hindsight. I was looking to see more immediate momentum, just given the fact that we're in the first 10 minutes here. And if we swept back lower, I wanted to get an entry lower, a better entry in this box. And unfortunately, both times we swept back lower, I was not able, it took me out to the tick, but didn't drop any lower for me to actually get a better entry. That just happens sometimes. It is what it is. On to the next one. We the People asked, is this recorded? Yeah, it's live here on Chart Fanatics Live. So you can go back and review the live. It will be recorded and shared on here. Yeah, I'm looking at ES. So the confirmation was, one, remember everything that I just went through on the volume profiles in the pre-market. the two key areas that I was watching to the upside was like the nearest key spots that I was watching. To the upside was that 85 to 95 area, and to the downside was that 55 to 70 area. We opened right into that 70 area, which was just the top of that key area that I was watching, right on the 9:30 open. And so after this, I saw this selling here that really failed to break any lower under this 6970 key level, which was just the top of that key zone that I was watching. And then I saw this really aggressive buying right here. And this is what got me interested in marking this box. Is one, the selling right off the open failed to get any lower under that 70 level, 6970. And then this large aggressive buying was also hitting. So once buyers drove back up there, I was saying, okay, if we hold a pullback into this area where this aggressive buying was, then I'll be, given the context that we opened, we already dropped in the pre-market right into this key level. If we now support it immediately and we have a lot of momentum here right off the open, then I'll be interested in taking this long, targeting just that 80 to 85 area, which we just hit now. Unfortunately, I managed the trade a little too tightly and took myself out break even here twice. But what happened was, as we dropped in here, I wasn't quite seeing enough to just long it on this pullback with these sellers. As soon as I started to see this aggressive buying step in, so where's my first entry at 74.50? As soon as I started seeing this aggressive buying step in here, right here, I started looking to go long. And then I saw this selling fail to break price any lower right here, and then more aggressive buying come in. This is where I took it long immediately. So I let the dip into the box occur, and then I went with the really aggressive buying right as it started to recapture above this box. When I take entries like this, I just know my best trades after we kind of dip into a zone like this and rally out of, they tend to shoot immediately and go to my target. And so when I see large aggressive, and the other thing that I was looking at was this high here. When I see large aggressive buying come in, I'm not sure. Yeah. When I see large aggressive buying come in over the prior high, when I'm taking a very quick scalp trade like this, I generally go break even with my risk. In this instance, I was only up like 3 points, and I generally wait until I'm up like 5 points or more and then move my risk break even. I was pretty tight with this one. I think in hindsight, if I'm being honest, I might have been a little iffy here just because it felt a little iffy, like entering trades in like the first 3 minutes. I still wasn't past that 5 minute. This was like 4 minutes after the market opened. So it kind of felt a little iffy, and I was being extra protective and going break even with my risk really fast, even though I was only risking like 2 points to begin with. I'm going to review that for myself. Maybe that was the right thing to do. Maybe it wasn't. In this case, obviously, unfortunately, I got stopped out to the tick twice. If my stop was 2 ticks lower, this would have been a 10-point win. So if my stop was 1 tick lower, this would have been a 10-point win. It is what it is. Sometimes that happens. But what kind of got me in the trade was just see how this selling here is smaller than what the selling we were seeing earlier over here. And we had seen this aggressive buying, and we defended, like, look at that line. Okay. Look where that aggressive buying came in right at 9:30 after that, and that selling failed to break any lower here. Look where price bounced. Almost to the tick exactly where the aggressive buying was. So that told me the aggressive buying was still coming in there. I wasn't buying it at the low here. I really wanted to see the aggressive buying do it again, right? It wasn't enough that we dipped. I wanted to see, like, no, do it again. And as soon as I saw the aggressive buying come in again, then I'm like, all right, I'm in it. And my initial stop was just under 72, just at 72 here, which is this low that was made. So I was risking like 2.5 points to make like 10. And, I was up like 1 to 1. I was up like 1.5 R here on the break of this high, and I went break even. Usually I wait till I'm up like 2 R, 5-ish points, and then I go break even. So I just managed it a little too tightly. Does that make sense though, as far as the analysis for the entry confirmation that I was looking at there and why I marked this zone? Again, I marked this zone once we saw this selling fail here in the pre-market and this aggressive buying step in. We rallied out of it, and then on the pullback into it, that's where I was watching it got defended. Does that make sense to you guys? We're kind of coming back to retest that area again, but large selling again hit up here. So same thing since I've been saying since the pre-market, we're kind of ping-ponging between these key areas, between 70 and 55 to the downside and like 85 to 95 to the upside. And we continue where I was trying to play this ping pong battle and catch it for a nice little ping pong scalp up to the top of this range, which worked out. I just managed the risk too tightly. Maybe that was a mistake. More often than not, it is a good way of managing the scalps that I take based on the entries that I typically get. This was an instance where it's not a loss per se, it's just a loss of unrealized gains I could have had. But it's all good. On to the next one. Clean slate. Bulls are continuing to hold these higher lows. I just don't like getting involved more and more in the middle here. I'd rather just sit back and wait for a little bit of a better, higher time frame play. I tried it once, got chopped out just a little bit. It is very frustrating to miss when your target is hit and you manage a trade just a little too tightly and get stopped to the tick. Especially just happened to me twice. It's annoying. I'm not gonna lie, it's annoying, but the important thing is when something annoying happens, when you get kind of punched in the face like that, is that you do not allow it to mentally derail you, and you don't allow it to impact your next trade. You're only as good as your next trade, right? So yeah, Karen asked a good question. Do you trade live on Chart Fanatics every Friday? Yes, I do. So this is some pretty heavy selling that's come in here. I'm not, it might bounce off here, but I'm not trying to go against this heavy selling that just came in here, to be honest. It certainly could bounce and we could continue to ping pong in here. The best opportunity, in my opinion, was that first test here this morning. The fact that that didn't hold and we're coming back, I'd watch out. This selling is a lot larger in size too. Like when I took this trade over here, look how small that selling was, failing to break under here. Now this could work, like large passive buyers could step in and defend this, but it just doesn't look so hot to me right now. So I'm just staying patient and watching. What is the refresh rate for the volume dots on Bookmap? I don't know. I don't think that's something I've ever changed. I have GPU and I use GPU acceleration on Bookmap. I know there is a settings for the refresh rate somewhere, but I think that's more applicable if you're not using a GPU. Mine is probably very high because I'm using an RTX 3090 that's powering my Bookmap. This is not delayed. This is real time. So we're seeing buyers again try to defend the same box, the same area at that 70s. But right now, this buying looks relatively smaller and weaker and this selling is looking kind of heavy. So like we could still hold here, and more new aggressive buying could come in, and we may continue to just ping pong between the 70 and 85 area. But it looked better on the first test earlier this morning. It looked higher quality to me, higher quality and better on the first test. The more we like ping pong and tighten in a range, the less active I look to be until we like get either a larger failed breakout of the extremes or a true breakout and retest. I like playing the first few ping pongs within a range, and then after that, not so much. Buyers are really still trying to defend this though. I mean, this is still, it's not invalid, right? It's still not invalid. The same key area where these large buyers started this morning earlier, still defending, but this selling is looking kind of heavy into here. If buyers are strong enough and passive buyers continue to defend against all this aggressive selling, these guys could get trapped at the lows and we could shoot quickly back up to the highs. But it's a little 50-50 here to me. It could still work, like I said, but this was the better opportunity for the trade. And it worked out perfectly, 70s to 85s. Yeah, this is just still looking kind of heavy. You want to see large aggressive buying come in. We're seeing absorption, right? Obviously, when all this selling is coming into these lows and price is not breaking any lower, what's happening? Obviously, these aggressive sellers have to be being met with a passive buyer. I talk about this, if you guys missed my stream before, where I talked about the sponge versus the faucet. But the question is here, this absorption is acting like a sponge. Is it enough to absorb everyone that's willing to sell, or does the sponge get saturated and we break through it? Now we're seeing some aggressive buying coming in. This is different. See how much larger this buying is? Now I'd be interested seeing this large aggressive buying come in. If we pull back and continue to hold, that might be more interesting. If we pull back with weaker selling now and continue to hold, that might be more interesting. Unless it just shoots straight to the moon without me. Looking like it. But this is, I like this. This is better confirmation. If, oops. Oh, that's terrible. See that buying out of this area? So again, passive, like I was saying, it was looking heavy, but passive buyers stepped in enough that they continued to defend this. See how much larger and aggressive this buying was? These dots are showing me the delta, by the way. So the delta between aggressive buyers and sellers. You can change Bookmap's bubbles to show you like the split between them. Like if I go over to configure studies here and go to volume dots, see how I have my dots are showing me the delta. So the difference between aggressive buyers and sellers. So if there's more sellers than buyers, it will be all red and vice versa. You can change this to show total volume like this, and then it will show you this kind of the split between, you know, just a quick visual split between the aggressive buyers and sellers total in that range, not just the delta, which is the difference between them. I personally like to just look at the delta because that's what I like to see the best. But you can see the total volume and kind of a rough visual of the split. See how it's like a pie chart now between buyers and sellers? So you could look at that too. I haven't used that too much. I kind of like to just look at the delta. Crap, we just retested into those buyers there at 75. I also look at the delta on my footprint chart here. So this is a good one to see. So just looking at the difference here. Wow. Wow. So this is looking pretty thin to me. See how we just kind of dropped down here very thinly? This is looking very thin to me. Oh, it's 9:56. That's why. 10 a.m. news is coming out, right? So the tape, this is a prime example of the tape getting very, very thin. Not a lot of resting orders. So price can easily kind of sweep up and down. And so if the tape is very thin like that and you're scalping with a very tight stop loss, it's just too easy to get swept out as price just sporadically moves up and down because the tape is very thin. But what I wanted to show you guys here, like while we're talking about this, was just this action right here where we saw this large aggressive buying come in. So another way to visualize this is on the footprint chart. And you can kind of see when that aggressive buying comes in like that, the total volume here on the right-hand side, you can, the delta here and the volume in the middle, you can just see this tail of volume. See how these sellers at this low failed to make a lower low from here. So obviously a passive buyer is sitting here absorbing them. And then when that aggressive buying came in, see how we see that kind of hump here? Let me snip this so I can draw this. Because I know some people maybe just have like a footprint chart and don't have bookmap like this. So I like to show you guys how you can view this kind of stuff in different ways. So let me put this here. So this is right here, right? So this footprint bar is this right here, where this aggressive buying came in. So sellers got absorbed in this range twice. And then this time, as we rallied out of it, we kind of built some volume here, and you can see the selling tapered off at the low, and then that bulge of I would ideally in a better A+ example, I would have seen a larger amount of volume there. But nonetheless, price shot up quickly and left this kind of tail of lower volume because there was an imbalance between, there's a lot more people aggressively buying, right? So that's what caught my eye, and I'd be looking for a retest into this. Now, obviously here, we're just a couple minutes away from this high impact 10 a.m. news. So there's not a lot of continuation on that. And the tape is very thin. So that's an example of why I would not look to execute a trade like that, as the tape is very thin before the news. But this is what would catch my eye for a trade, seeing this large aggressive buying after this weaker selling. See how we had heavier selling into here, got absorbed, rallied out, weaker selling this time, and larger aggressive buying coming out of there. That is something that I like to pay attention to. It's a little thin in Wiki. We came down here, and again, 10 a.m. news coming out in 1 minute, guys. So heads up if you guys are in any trades, right? This could go anywhere, or it may do nothing. I don't know. It's a coin flip. It's a coin flip, and we're right in between those key areas that I've talked about all morning, between 70 and 85. So we're just kind of middle here. Middle of the range going into some higher impact news. To be honest with you guys, if I would have actually executed this a little better and didn't get stopped out break even on this trade, I probably would have just taken that 10-point run right into my target and called it. When in doubt, zoom out. You can see up here 85 area from the charts. Show you guys again. In case you missed it in the pre-market, let me show you again. So let's drag this over here. In case you missed it in the pre-market, I was talking about this area where we had all of this consolidation. Look at this is a 30-minute chart with the volume profile. Yesterday, we had a lot of consolidation in here. Look at all the volume that built. And then on the news this morning, we rallied out of it. However, so this is kind of that area that I was watching between 69.70 and 55. However, the day prior to that, we had all this volume built here over 2 days. This afternoon, we spent a lot of time consolidating there, built a lot of volume. Again, the next day, built a lot of volume consolidating there. And this was between like 85 and 95, right? So going into this morning, literally like since 9 a.m., I've been saying we're between this rock and a hard place, just in terms of volume and order flow. And it's no coincidence. That's exactly where we've stayed all day. Now, my trade idea was just trying to catch it, you know, after we failed to break that down, just back up into there. It worked. I managed the trade a little too tightly and stopped out break even, but somebody asked, am I going to take a trade again? Coley, it would be impossible for me to know. If I see a good opportunity at a good level, then yes. If not, no. I trade my own personal account, my own real money, and I don't trade live for signals. I don't trade live for clickbait entertainment. I'm not like executing random trades on a demo account or a prop account. I'm not trying to lose my own hard-earned money. So if there's a good opportunity, I will take the trade. If there's not, I won't. But if nothing else, see how this analysis and understanding the context helped us really identify where it was a good spot to look for a trade, kind of playing within this range, and where it was not. So we already had, you know, going into this morning, we just looking at the volume and everything, we already had a very good understanding of where to watch out for price, and also price to bounce up and down, and also understanding where not to take a trade in the middle of that. Also just being, it's not catching us off guard that price is ping-ponging in this range, right? We were already mentally prepared for that going into the trading session today. And again, it's I've said this before, it's not necessarily about being right or wrong. It's just having that analysis and understanding of what's likely going on. And if that happens, okay, no problem. If that doesn't happen and something else happens, like we break out of this range, then that's equally valuable information, right? Because now we can be like, okay, now new information is developing. So it's valuable either way. Continuing to see some heavy selling pressure at these lows. $15-minute looks pretty nasty. So again, looking at my 15-minute candle chart here, You can see this resistance area that I marked up here was based on that volume, not just a candle chart pattern. So that's why that worked really well, obviously. And then again, that support area that I was watching also aligned with this consolidation area here on the candle chart between like 55 and 70. But the top of that being at 70 has been reacting this morning. We're starting to break under that now. But again, it's tough for me to initiate shorts down here because, you know, buyers could really defend this whole, anywhere in this zone, we could see some buyers defend this 55 to 70 range. So we're definitely seeing a lot of weakness here. I'm just not so keen on shorting the lows into an area that could rally. I'm always thinking about trade setups in terms of both. Well, first and foremost, risk versus reward, right? I always prioritize and focus on risk management and risk versus reward for trades. Also, I focus on, you know, kind of aligning conditions, market context to focus, and that's how I kind of focus on having a good win rate at the same time, is just being patient for good trades at good levels that align with the market context. Again, going back to what I was talking about this morning, is just not taking random trades at non you know, good levels and stuff. So if one aspect is there and not the other, I'm less likely to take a trade. That's like a B trade to me. An A trade to me is when we have good context, good level, everything is aligning, and good confirmations to get in with high risk versus reward. So despite seeing this weakness, you know, confirmations of the selling looks great, but I don't see, in terms of context and location, I don't see a good spot to enter with good risk versus reward. Now we're starting to break pretty squarely under this 55 to 70 area. We'll see what happens if we fake it out and recapture, or if it holds and it does recapture. Large buying just stepped in there. Look at that, almost 1,500 lot aggressive buyer just stepped in right there. We're flirting right at those 55s at the bottom of that range. More aggressive buying coming in. Just took that long here. I have a pretty tight stop. I'm in at 60. Where am I at? 60, 75. I'm just stopping under 59. I want to see this kind of squeeze out some of these early shorts, or sorry, yeah, some of these first shorts. I like seeing that 1,500 lot aggressive buyer come in, but I don't want to see that if that's a passive seller continuing to sell to break down this 55 range, then I'm not gonna hold. I don't like how this is stalling here. Again, kind of want to see this squeeze pretty immediately. Kind of good. All right, I'm going break even again with my risk here. 69, 60, 75. I'm just targeting a bounce back up into 70, point of control-ish. And we'll see. You know, I liked how he dropped all the way down to the bottom of that key zone that I talked about at 55. And then literally on the recapture, that massive 1,500 lot aggressive buyer, and it grew there to almost 2,000 lots. So I want to see this continue to squeeze pretty much immediately, or I'm going to cut it, but it's up like 5 points. Could see all this aggressive buying hit that. There we go. I'm going to cut half here. Looking for a retest of this box here. We're just right at the point of control, very close to it. It's up 8 points. I'm just going to close. We retraced this low volume tail back up into this resistance area. It was up 8 points. So I scaled out for like 7 and 8 points. I got in here with that aggressive buying. When that large aggressive buying came in and then held, it only held for a split second. My stop was only under, like a point under this aggressive buying. So with this low volume tail here, I had my stop just under this. So 60, 75, I had about 2.5 points of risk. I could keep holding here. There's a lot of aggressive buying coming in, but you know, I took a break even already and now I'm up 14 points on the day. So I'm cool with that. Basically, this was, I call it a fade the extreme type setup, where the 60, 69, 55s to 70 was that demand range. We dropped all the way down to the bottom of that, which was like the bottom of that demand range that I was watching. We dipped under it, and then as soon as we recaptured it, this massive buying came in. And as soon as we started to pop over it again, I took it long, and pretty much all aggressive buying came in after that. This is another example. I managed this trade almost exactly the same as the trade I managed earlier that I stopped out break even on. Where as soon as we recaptured above that aggressive buying, I went break even with my risk. And this time, you know, my scale out was like 7, 8 points, risking like 2 points. So the first one, I stopped out break even, no problem. This one, you know, I'm just targeting a middle of the range bounce here. Yeah, we may rally from here all the way back up into the 80s. I don't know. But when I take a fade the extreme type setup where we're going basically the bottom of the range, fading the bottom of the range, when I see like extremely large buying hit the lows, I'm just kind of targeting a pop back to the middle. So let me see here. Show you guys what I'm talking about again on the volume profile, in case anybody missed it. Again, so we had this consolidation area from yesterday that I was watching, and specifically like right around where we consolidated overnight, that 55 to 70 range that I was looking for. We hit the lows of it, and we saw massive aggressive buying on right at the lows, which is unusual, like 1,500 lots, and then it grew to like 2,000 lots. So we had this resistance area up here. Again, same thing I was talking about, that 85 to 95 area that we already rejected off of. So I'm looking at just kind of like the middle between those. Point of control is here. So that's all I was looking to target there. I was just targeting as soon as the tape slowed down as we rallied. Now we've rallied actually past that now. Maybe I could have just kept trailing my stop because I scaled out here as soon as we retraced this lower volume back towards the middle. Maybe I should have just trailed my stop under these bars along the ways and let it keep going. But it looked, at the time, I didn't see any, like, yeah, we see more large buying up here. But at the time when we popped up here, I didn't see any large buying prints, and it looked like it was starting to slow down, so I just scaled out. So it's still about a, I'll have to pull it into TradeZella and do the metrics, but it's about 3R, I think, off the top of my head, risking about 2.5 to make 7 points overall. Let me see. Yes, almost 3R. Just a little, kind of a mean reversion. I call this type of setup a fade the extreme scalp. Hang on, guys. Looks like my chat's not working. What's going on? Is the stream still live, guys? I don't know. Everything's frozen on my end for the chat. Hopefully that didn't just freeze in the middle of the trade and leave you guys hanging. There we go. I'm back. Holy crap. Second time today. This happened in the pre-market when I was trying to get the stream going. Now it happened again. You guys got me? No, I'm not shorting. I'm not shorting. Still, I hope that didn't freeze. And I'd be like, I'm taking a trade, and then the stream just freezes. And nobody knows. Oh, man. Are we good? I don't know. All the it's back on now. I hope everything that I just covered for that trade was on stream. Yeah, we're still rallying up from here. I'm not trying to fade this. For one, we're in the middle of the range. Look, I entered that trade at the extreme of the range, right? Down there at the 55s with that large aggressive buying, right? Remember, I just told you guys, I call that a fade the extreme setup. Massive buying hit the lows there on that failed break of that 55 level. Again, talking about it all morning, 55 to 70. The first trade I tried to take was around 70 at the top of that range. Then I waited until we hit the bottom of that range, and then the confirmation was, it became a fade the extreme setup for me, like I call it. We had a massive delta, aggressive buying hit the lows. And again, it may rally all the way to the moon from here. I don't know. But the highest probability piece for me was just the bounce back to the middle, and I took it off. Seems like an issue overall with YouTube. Somebody said, Samir trades, thanks. All right. Well, before the stream gets messed up anymore, you guys want to run some giveaways? I hope you guys weren't interrupted for seeing that trade live. All right, so we're gonna go through the giveaways, guys, before the stream messes up on me again. We have Apex, FundNext, Alpha Capital accounts. You're going to enter this in the chat one time and one time only. If you enter it multiple times, you will be disqualified from it. Exclamation point order flow, enter it in the chat one time. I'm going to close it in just a minute. And again, so my target for that was, there's a couple things I had in mind, which is one, this box from earlier that broke down that I was watching. Two, it was just the middle of that range between, between 90 and 55, right? So that was roughly near there. Also, we had this VWAP level here. I took that trade off pretty fast at the 68s. So like right here, as we were testing the bottom of this, again, just a quick little 3R scalp. It was just an easy money, quick little scalp. Nothing crazy. About $700 though. $700 and what was that? 45 to, sorry, 10:08, 10:12. So 4 minutes, $700 something in 4 minutes, risking like 200 and change. I'm good with that. All right, guys, 1 second. We're going to close it. Anthony, let's close it. Left some money on the table with this one for sure, but it's okay. Wow, look at that. Look at that. You guys see how we caught the freaking absolute bottom of that sell-off? Guys, it's closed now. Exclamation point order flow is closed. We will run, all entries are in. We'll run the giveaway here momentarily. But can we just pause for a second to talk about how freaking awesome trading with order flow is to spot the bottom? Look at, I mean, just looking at a candle chart, right? Let me go back here. Even looking at my 2-minute candle chart, at this moment, right? I got in at 60 here. Good luck trying to trade that with precision and consistency with a candle chart alone. Right? Isn't that freaking awesome? How precisely we caught that low based on seeing the order flow and having a plan and a level for it based on the volume profile, etc. Look at that. We've now had almost a 30 point, we're almost going up to 90 from 55s. So we saw that low. We already had a zone for it, 55 to 70, hit it like, holy crap. Did we call that zone precisely or what? 55. What was the actual low on there? Oh, crap. Recenter. $55.75. So within 3 ticks. Let me go back to the Chart Fanatics Discord, right? No hindsight here. See that? No hindsight. Real time, already prepared for that. So that is what's super awesome about analyzing the order flow in real time and being able to spot such precise trades with such high risk. Yeah, I undercapitalized on this one. That's all good. I had a plan, I took it. All right, guys, let's run the giveaways. Let me get the list here. I just thought that was neat, right? We're up like 35 points from there now on ES. Look at that freaking laser beam from there. This is kind of what I was looking for with my first entry this morning over here. And I trailed my risk super break even. Obviously, the timing wasn't right for that yet. I got in over here. Holy crap. It's going, oh my gosh. Oh man. Undercapitalization of the year here. It's all good. There's been like 3 or 4 times this year I've bottom ticked like 100-point moves and did not capitalize nearly on the 100 points. But that's okay. This is something I repeat day in and day out. I don't need to catch the whole moves. All right, let me pull up the giveaway thing. Yeah, I'll show the bottom on the footprint in a second. Let me pull this over so we can see everything. Trying to make sure we can continue to see the order flow on Bookmap, and we'll do the names here. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Sorry, guys. I'm just like stunned with the... I'm even surprised at how aggressive this buying was since I took that low there. Obviously, I'm kicking myself now for not holding it longer. Mr. Stevie, first account giveaway. Mr. Stevie, let me know. Are you in the chat? There he is. So to claim this, congratulations, Mr. Stevie. To claim it, follow the instructions in the giveaways channel in Discord, like the message there states. So go in the Chart Fanatics Discord. Let me just show you. You can go over here to the giveaways tab and follow the instructions there. Sweet. Congratulations. Let's run it again. The something. Congratulations. Thanks for joining in, Mr. Stevie. There's a quote that I was just reading in one of my favorite books this morning that I want to share with you guys. And it's so dang applicable to today. And it's so dang applicable that I literally just read this morning. And I'm going to share it with you guys here because it so applies to exactly what just happened to me. And I'm just going back to this to remind myself why I don't have FOMO about not catching this whole dang thing here. Are you in the chat here? Yeah, don't chase candles now. Let me know if you're in here. Going once. Going twice. I'm going to have to remove and move on to the next one. All right, gonna remove, guys. We're gonna respin. We came back up to that 85 to 90 zone, just peaked over it, and some aggressive selling is hitting the highs up here again. The trade JE. Let me know if you're in the chat. The trade JE. The trade JE, are you in the chat? Let me know. Congratulations. Going once. Going twice. Everybody slept. All right, we're removing. Blaze King H3T. Okay, the trade JE. You guys got him? And Blaze King H3T. Congrats, the trade JE. You guys got him in the chat, Anthony? And Blaze King. There he is. Yeah, if you guys don't want to get removed, you got to be active here, man. Not hanging around. All right. Chat called it. We're moving on. Have to respin. Sorry if you don't call it. ADM Johnston. You got to be ready to go, active in the chat. There he is. ADM Johnston got it. So there's a if you want to claim the giveaways, guys, go in the chart Fanatics. For those of you that won, giveaways tab, claim it there. For those of you that responded in time. Sorry. We're back every day, guys. So this is one of my favorite books, The Studies in Tape Reading. And I was literally just reading it this morning. This section that's highlighted, I don't know if that'll be in focus, but it's super, super applicable today. And he says, I will record here the claim that the best results in active tape reading lie in the scenting the moves as they occur, getting in when they start and out when they culminate. This will, in most cases, cause failure to get all of the moves in the most active moves, right? So the goal is not to catch the entire move that happens, right? The goal is to have a plan to spot with the order flow when the move starts, get in very quickly and very precisely. And, you know, at this time, based on how I was reading it here at the 68s, I saw the buying start to dwindle. I was cautious of this box where I was watching for the bounce earlier. I decided to take it off there, right? It was already up 3R. I had already given back a trade break even earlier. So again, the goal is not to catch the absolute bottom and the absolute top of every move, right? The goal is to have a very precise and repeatable system that we can trade day in and day out and catch our precise planned move that has a high probability and forget the rest, right? That's what I had a plan for. That's what I had a target for. That's where I exited. Yeah, Studies in Tape Reading by Richard Wyckoff. It's an old book. It's an old book. It's like the OG of order flow and tape reading. But technology has changed significantly since then. Names on the tickers have changed since then. But the fundamental concepts still apply of understanding the tape, understanding the order flow, understanding market participants in an auction. But I feel like that was a pretty in-depth breakdown, guys. Any other questions? So the giveaways work like this. We run the spin, like after we collect the names, after you enter in the chat, when I drop the keyword, I run the spin and I'll give it a few minutes and you have to claim it. You know, we're not, if people are jumping in and out of the chat and they're not actually like staying in consistently and here when we do the giveaway, then unfortunately we're just gonna have to respin to give it to someone else who is active here. I do my best to be patient and wait for people to respond, but yeah, that's a great question. Sorry, you asked that earlier, I think, as well. Can I show the bottom on the footprint? Yes. So we can compare and contrast. We saw this large aggressive buying come in right at the lows after, you know, we dwindled off here, and just look how large and aggressive that selling was that came, or buying was that came in. And then we came back, more aggressive buying just again and again. Yeah, D-Boss, if you weren't in the pre-market, he said, he asked a question, do you have a specific way to go about identifying market context? Do you have a specific time frame you zoom out to? I went through that a lot in the pre-market here on stream. We went through some different charts of what I was watching, and then all the way down to the 30-minute charts with volume profiles to kind of look at the very specific areas that I was watching, specific zones of these highs and lows. And then, you know, I have specific setups based on that I look for. This setup today, I call this kind of a fade the extreme type setup. It's kind of a fading the extreme of a range that we've been in, up and down. Great questions, though. Yeah. Ray Marrero 7652 said, written in 1910s, great book, read it over and over again, making notes along the way. Highly recommend taking his advice there. So we're still seeing sellers resist up here at the top of this ping pong range that I've been talking about. We swept a bit above it. Again, I was talking about 85 to 95, even kind of up to 7,000. We swept up to the top of it, just under 7,000. I'm not, you know, given that we're so near all-time highs and bulls continue to hold the lows, I like fading the extreme at the lows way more than the highs here in this context. Because anytime we're near all-time highs like this and we continue to hold higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, I'm way more apt to look for failed breaks at the lows to go long than I am to short the highs. That's just me. Some people might be the opposite. Thanks, D-Boss. Appreciate that. Yeah. If you guys want more information from me, the best way to reach me is on Instagram. I'm very responsive to DMs on there. So shoot me a message. If you'd like to connect with me, or if you have any other questions, I'm going to wrap up the stream here. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a good one. Hopefully you guys got some value out of this as far as understanding how to read the tape, how to read the order flow, how to kind of come up with key levels, see key things as they develop in real time on the order flow. Over here this morning off the open, which was my first trade attempt, and here with this super large, which was my second trade attempt. So look at this. You know, the only 2 points that I looked to take a trade today was here, and we had kind of a 12 point bounce off of it. And then here, which we had like a 40 point rally off this one. Again, that's just from spotting this key activity on the order flow combined with a key zone that we were looking at from the overall market context, volume profiles, etc. Yeah, I do. If you want to reach out to me on Instagram, that's the best way to get a hold of me if you'd like more information from me. Thanks all for tuning in. I'll see you guys next Friday in Chart Fanatics Live. Peace.